So Christy, I'm going to start with you. And I know you've probably been asked this question ad nauseum, but how does it really feel seeing yourself on the big screen and it's technically not you, but it's your story?
Well, as I always say, I am truly a coal miner's daughter from a little itty bitty town in southern West Virginia. We have about 700 people, no stop sign, no stop light, no nothing. So to see my life on the big screen is pretty amazing. I think it's very important though. And then to see Sydney Sweeney being me, that's pretty unbelievable. She's the it girl right now. So that someone like her would take on this role is pretty amazing.
So what made you say yes when it came up and they came to you and said we want to put your story on the screen? What made you say yes?
It's easy because when I was in the hospital after being shot and stabbed, I made a deal with God that if He'll let me live, I'm going to help at least one person before I leave this earth. And then the arrogant me said, no, I want to help one person every day. Well, this is the way I can help one person, hopefully, every day, is to do this movie and to let people. I think they'll start speaking more freely about domestic violence. At least it will give a vehicle to open up conversations. Gotcha. And to get people to be more aware of their friend's situation, their mother's situation, their sister, and we'll step in and offer support.
Very nice. Mirrah, in creating the screenplay for this story, how was it writing the journey as a survivor's journey, not a victim's journey?
Oh, that part was easy because Christy is such a survivor, That part was never in question, and it was we always knew that this film had to carry with it sort of hope and resilience, and it at times goes to some pretty dark places, and that's not always easy to do. It's not always easy to watch, but we also knew that it had to hold that as well. But it was always going to be a survivor story, and Christy makes sure of that. That was inevitable. Absolutely.
And David, as a director, you had to frame the film or frame her story beyond the ring. Talk a little bit about that, all the other facets that you brought to the story.
Outside the ring?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the stuff that, it wasn't the boxing that drew me to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Christy as a boxer drew me to the movie in a way, not just even necessarily in fighting her fight technique, but just the personality that she brought to the ring. She was colorful.
That was a nice way to say it.
But really all the other stuff, I found myself, I was that person. I think there are many people out there who look at the kinds of relationships, the kind of relationship that Christy was effectively trapped in for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that person who would ask the question, why didn't she leave?
Gotcha.
And I knew there was an answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started digging in, and in a way that was the stuff that made me not just want to make the movie, but need to make the movie. Because if I'm asking, I consider myself a smart man. If I'm asking that question, there's a lot of people asking that question, and it does have an answer. These coercive control relationships are. We think about domestic violence as, those situations in which a woman presents to an emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
There's this whole other world of stuff going on that is actually a kind of hostage-taking scenario.
Mm-hmm.
That is a form of quite severe and often long-lasting psychological and emotional abuse that sometimes I'm guessing you don't even know that you're in while it's happening. I've heard this a fair bit in my research since, is that often women don't realize what they were in until it's over.
Gotcha.
I now don't even remember what the question was, but this was what made me want to make the movie. It felt really, really important.
Got you. Mirrah, how did you, in the writing of the story, balance the brutality of the fight scenes with the empathy for the character or for the person herself?
Again, I feel like Christy does all my job for me, in a sense, because there's something just so undeniable, especially when Christy was young, this kind of like all this trash talk and the chutzpah and sometimes this sort of seemingly unpleasantness of it all. It was all done with this sort of delightful twinkle of an eye, and there was something so mischievous and playful and about young Christy that always felt really fun and easy to write. And then what I was really struck by when I actually got to know Christy and we started hanging out a bit was this softness that I didn't expect, this very kind of just like gentle softness. And so in the latter stages of the film, when Christy's older, it was really interesting to try and sort of tap into how someone that could have endured so much could still have a real gentle, soft openness. And so that part was sort of easy. I mean, I never doubted for a second that there's that even though she's doing and saying some pretty crazy stuff as a young fighter with chutzpah, it's totally delightful and likable.
Got it. Now, Christy, I know you touched on it a little bit earlier. You got Sydney Sweeney, who looks at your film as an opportunity for this to be a vehicle to really kind of spotlight her dramatic work in a way that we haven't seen her before. You've clearly probably had some conversations. I'm assuming you guys have talked. She tried to pick your brain. Talk about the experience of seeing, of working with her, and her ultimately portraying you.
Well, when I came on set the first time, she had already been in the boxing gym for weeks. She was doing almost everything like me, except I had to get her to twist on her left hook a little bit more, get a little butt behind it so she could get some power into it. But other than that, she had me down pretty good as far as even my twang, my mannerisms, the cocky, arrogant, crazy shit that I did in the ring. She had all that stuff down. The domestic violence stuff, she took. We had some conversations about, and but she had already done research on that as well. So she was way ahead of me before I ever got there to even sit down with her. She already knew all the answers.
So what was the first time like when they showed you either? I'm assuming you weren't there. Were you there when you guys were filming it, or did you see it, or you were there during the film?
Most of it, all of it. Yeah.
So how did it feel the first time you saw the dailies and you were like, oh, she's doing me. Oh, that's me doing. Oh.
It made me laugh. It made me laugh. On the boxing stuff, especially when she did the, like sticking the tongue out and some of the making fun of opponents. That was bad, but I did it. It made me laugh. It made me smile. And then I would be, come on, Sydney, knock her out. And then Sydney came back and she said, but Christy, I'm going to throw the left hook. Why are you yelling for me to throw it? You already know what's going to happen. So it was fun, for the most part. There was some tough scenes, but I tried to keep the easy and light and open and have fun and really enjoy every moment that I was there to watch them put this thing together.
Absolutely excellent. Now, Mirrah, back to you. You notice how the mic is going this way.
Yeah.
No, you're good. Talk about the female gaze and the physicality of how you kind of worked. It's her story, but you have to help craft it for the screen. So talk about the elements of bringing that to the story, or it being through her, us understanding it's through her gaze.
Yeah, well, Dave talks about something quite interesting, that he really struggled to understand why women stay in these relationships. And I think that can be quite gendered. I think something innately in you as a woman understands why women stay, because whether you've endured something as horrific as Christy's relationship, or you've just had a little kind of taste of what that might be like, there's something sort of in your bones on a cellular level as a woman that understands what it can feel like to have your power taken away, I think. So, I mean, I do think that, Dave is one of my favourite feminists. He's a great supporter and lover of women, and I say that with absolute on sincerity. But there is something about having the two of us being able to co-write together meant that we were able to bring different things, I think, to the page. And just by the fact of my being a woman, I think that certain things I got a little easier, and then other things, Dave, was so, you talk about a female gaze. I mean, in the past, there's been moments where I'm kind of like, I don't know about this. Like, I'd like to think that I can write in it. I'm a writer. That's what I do. I can, with the right sort of research and imagination, I can inhabit any kind of world. But I do think, and perhaps the making of this film has made me change my position a little bit on that. I do think there are things that you bring in just by the nature of your gender that have insight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm breaking the
No, we going.
In my defense, because it wasn't just that I wasn't just asking the question, why do women stay in these relationships? I also didn't really understand why the men stay in them. I mean, they don't look pleasant. It doesn't look loving, and especially over a long period of time, I went, okay, there's something else going on here. Their need to exercise power is keeping them in a relationship that that probably shouldn't exist. That was also something I wanted to unpick.
But I don't think you need to defend yourself, because I think a lot of men have the same, and a lot of women as well are perplexed by this also. I think sometimes part of that understanding can be a little gendered, but yeah.
So I was gonna, y'all too funny. I was gonna ask you, David, that the relationship in the film, when we talk about between you and your ex-husband James, was a study in power and coercion. Is that sort of how you saw it when you were kind of directing this?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's actually kind of frightening to me. It's, again, like I said before, it's my reason for wanting to make the movie is when I started to realize how predictable these relationships can be. I mean, I was, by this point, when I first started doing the research, I was already very familiar with Christy's story. Started doing the research, and it was just like this: you could insert Christy's story into any of these, seminal texts about coercive control, and it would just slip in perfectly. And that, given the statistics, that there are women all over, not just America, but all over the world, who are trapped in these relationships right now. And so understanding, for me, it was, just for myself, it was about understanding how they function. But on a larger scale, for the movie, it's about hopefully, for friends and family and mothers and fathers and, being able to recognize that maybe someone they know is in a relationship like this, and just, putting that hand out to, it's I always feel like I need to be really careful when I say this stuff, because getting yourself, as Christy discovered, extracting yourself from these relationships can be really dangerous.
Yes.
But you've got to start somewhere, and you got to do it sooner rather than later.
So I got a couple of minutes to go, and I saw this film in Toronto. And one of the things, and I'm not going to say I don't understand it, because I know I struggle sometimes with the things that I would do, me, and then what the character's doing something entirely different. One of the things that drove me batty, and I want to find out if it's true, is that there was several times in this film that the character, James, kept telling you, if you do X and X, I'm going to cause you harm. He didn't say that. He said, I'm going to kill you, but we wanted to charge you. Is that true, and did you sort of hear that? And I'm talking about you, not the character. I'm talking about you, the person, and heard that and just went, he loves me. Maybe that's just something he says. But I found that to be really odd, because I was like, if he keeps saying it over and over, I'm assuming that at some point he really means it, which you had to live through.
So when I first married Jim, I was 23, 24, I was young. Mm-hmm. And the first time he told me, actually before I married him, that if you leave me, I'll kill you. I'm 20-something, I'm young, I'm thinking he's joking, I'm not taking it for real. Maybe it's a sick joke, but he's not serious. Right. That he's going to kill me. Over the next 20 years, he continued to tell me at different times, I will kill you if ever you leave me. And there was a point, and it was closer to the end, but I knew that he was going to kill me if ever I left. And I got so low that it didn't matter.
Okay.
I'm going to live or die, and that's what. So that last day, I called friends. I called lots of people that I wanted to tell goodbye. They didn't know I was telling them goodbye, but I was telling them goodbye, and they all said the same thing: do not go back there. He's crazy. He's calling people. He's doing this. He's doing that. But I wasn't going to run for the rest of my life. So I was going to either live or die by whatever he was going to do. And so that is all true. Everything in the movie. Everything in the movie. There's nothing Hollywoodized.
I just want to add to that as well, that the steps of this coercive control happens over a long period of time, and women are deprived of things bit by bit, and the control ratchets up. So it's sort of like a frog in boiling water situation. It gets worse and worse and worse, and then you find yourself you're in so deep that it's very difficult to get out. So anyway, I just wanted to add that that's kind of part of the patterns of this sort of behaviour, including financial control, separating you from friends and loved ones that can reaffirm and tell you that this is not a good space to be in. So I think by the time someone's making threats like that it can often be followed by really intense love bombing and the opposite, and excessive apologies. And so it kind of might sound crazy that you could hear that stuff and still stay in it, but at the same time, within the context of what is a very kind of like structured form of control, it also makes sense, and it's extremely common.
So I think that's my time, but before I go, I heard you say earlier that you wanted your story to be able to help at least one person. Even as an outsider, me, and having no history of this, I felt such empathy for that character. And for you, I'm saying that when I'm watching a film, the character, but I feel empathy sitting here with you, having to have lived through that. So I'm so glad that your story will continue to inspire so many other people.
Thank you. And I appreciate your words, but I share my story not for, and you use the word empathy, so I thank you, but I don't want sympathy. I want my story to give other people strength. That's why I share my story. I don't need or deserve sympathy. I appreciate your empathy. Absolutely. I appreciate your empathy, but I don't want people to feel sorry for Christy. No. Okay. Christy has landed on her feet, and I'm running slowly, but I'm running.
No, I got you.